This is just a quick introduction for how to use the pubmed brick in Python. So we're talking about biobricks. You can check the other videos if you don't know what that is. But just to get started, I already have biobricks installed. You could install it yourself just by doing biobricks or pip install. I'm going to upgrade in case I don't have the latest version. Here we go. Now I have biobricks, and you want to make sure that you have biobricks on your path. I'm not sure this works, but yeah. So for me, that's where biobricks is. Wherever you're installing your global Python packages, you want to make sure that's on your path. But once that's on your path, you can use biobricks and you can configure it. So for me, it's already configured, but you can configure yourself. And the important thing about configuration is that you set a directory where you're going to store your files. So that directory is you can look it up just by looking up biobricks, and this token is okay to share. This is just the free token. You can see for me, my biobricks library is /mount/firecuda/biobricks. So I can go there, and this is where all my biobricks data is getting stored. It's important that this is a directory with a good amount of space. Some of these bricks are really large, including the pubmed brick. You can see that, yeah, so right now on this machine, all I have is the pubmed brick installed, and you can see that this directory is already 93 gigabytes. So you need a lot of space here, and ideally some fast read and write speed. Okay, so we installed biobricks with pip install biobricks. And we ran biobricks configure to get our directory, and now we're going to show you how to install pubmed. So all you have to do is run biobricks install pubmed. For me, this is already installed, so this should be pretty quick. For you, it's much faster than you would than getting pubmed from the NCBI FTP, but it's still going to take a while to, depending on your internet connection, to download all of pubmed. But anyways, once you install pubmed, like I've done above, you're ready to start coding. So let's go ahead and start writing some code. So first we're going to import biobricks as BB, and we're also going to use pandas as PD and pyro. So pandas should be a package you're familiar with already, but basically for manipulating tabular data, it's kind of the standard package in Python. And and we're also going to import. So we don't actually need this here as PQ. So basically, biobricks today mainly distributes Parquet files, and those Parquet files, they're just a way of writing tabular data to files. And the pyro package is what you want to use for reading and writing those files. So yeah, we've got all the packages we need now. So the first thing we can do is just list what are the assets from the pubmed brick that we've installed. And oops, Python 3. So we can import those two things. And these are our assets. So you can see that one of our assets here is, for me, it's in that /mount/firecuda directory. And you can see that basically the way this breaks down is this is your biobricks directory. The first, the path for your biobricks directory is, so it comes first, and that's actually up to here. And then this is the brick. And then this is some sort of hash for some of the data in your brick. And you can see that there's a pubmed.parquet. So you don't have to pay too much attention to exactly where this is coming from, but just so you know that this is actually a directory that's stored on your file system somewhere. Okay, so that's what pubmed is. That's the assets that pubmed has. If we want to load pubmed, this is going to be changing biobricks soon, but right now you can just run bb.load pubmed, and that'll give you pubmed in a simple namespace. And you can see if I do tab completion here, that pubmed is the only name in that namespace. You can also just look at the object. So we'll do it this way. Now we have the a Parquet data set. Now, what you might be tempted to do at this point, if you're familiar with Pyaro, is you might be tempted to do pubmed.read and then two pandas or something like that. I'm not going to run that because PubMed is really big, and it would, I don't. This machine has a lot of RAM. Well, not that much, 62 gigs of RAM, but but PubMed's bigger than that. So we don't want to read the whole thing into memory. So what can we do instead? Well, one thing we can do is just list every Parquet data set is just made up of files. So we can just list the files, and so here are the files. Like we could look at an example file here. That's one of our example files, and you can see it's just a file in this directory pubmed.parquet, which again is comes from this parent directory. So they're just files in there, and if we want to just take a sample of this thing, we can do first file is pubmed.files 0, and that first file, you can see it's just a Parquet file. So it's not a directory, it's just a Parquet file. So we can open that using Pyaro. So we can just do Pyaro Parquet file, first file, and we're just going to call this PubMed file 1. So now we have PubMed file 1, and you can see it's a Parquet file object. If we want to read that into pandas, all we have to do is PubMed file 1, read row group 0, and this is just going to read the head of this file. So even the individual files can be large, but this will get you the data in pandas. And so that's one way you can start manipulating this stuff. If the data set is large enough to fit in RAM, you can just read the whole thing in RAM. Otherwise, you're going to have to break it down into files and read those files one by one using this kind of approach. And if you're doing some sort of batch process where you're like running some sort of program on subsets of the data, on batches of the data, you can create a batch iterator across all these files. So this works pretty well, but it does seem like it requires a lot of knowledge about Pyaro. And I don't know, it's a little weird how Pyaro doesn't have a way to just read the head of a Parquet data set. I'm sure, or that might change in the future. I don't really know. But just another way to do this, if you have PySpark installed, all of the biobrick's Parquet files are written to be manipulatable by Spark, and Spark is a really great distributed computing system for manipulating, a lot of data. You can even run Spark on a computing cluster if you really wanted to get some horsepower. And for the larger data sets on biobricks, they're really meant to be manipulated by something like Spark. So we're going to go ahead and use that. So the first thing we do is just start a Spark session. Now we have a Spark session running. So just it's just you can think of the Spark session as just like a connection to a computing cluster. In this case, that computing cluster is just a one computer computing cluster, and it gets set up automatically. We install PySpark, pip install PySpark, and then just run a Spark session here. And then you can create that connection builder. You create an app name, and we'll call this PubMed. And then you, get or create it. Oops. Yeah, so now we have a Spark session running. You can see some warnings there about, no native Hadoop library and all of that. But this is really just a simple example. So, one thing we can do here is just read the data set. So spark.read Parquet, and we can actually just pull in bb.assets pubmed 0. So just to remind you what that looks like, that those assets are just paths. And in this case, this is just a path to that Parquet dataset. Parquet dataset is just a directory full of Parquet files. So if we go to that directory, you can see there are just a bunch of Parquet files in here. Yeah. Okay, so we can read that using Spark, and yeah, there we go. So now we have a data frame in Spark, and you can see it has PubMed IDs, it has JSON strings with all the PubMed, Medline metadata, and then it has a source. And then, if we wanted, we could just do df.limit 10 to show, and that should go ahead and show us what we're working with. So these are two ways that you can start working with biobrick and Python, and Spark is probably the preferred way to do it, the recommended way to do it. We actually think we're going to be removing bb.load in the future because we want to start distributing other kinds of data assets. But both of these methods today, both these methods will work for loading data. In general, I would stick with using methods that use the bb.assets function just to list the assets in a brick. Yeah, and I think the Spark approach is actually really clean and simple. If you can get this down, if you just are okay with having lines that are a little bit long, you can get this down to just a few lines. Yeah, so this would all work for you too. Just go ahead and run that. And there you go. You can start seeing the table, and then Spark just has a ton of functionality. You can talk to GPT-4 about Spark, or you can just look at the tutorials. Lots of stuff you can do with that. So that's it. I hope this tutorial was helpful. Goodbye.